Hey, my name is Jeffrey Woodward, better known as Mr. Jeffrey Woodward, Detroit's Don of UK Garage. I've been in the game since 1978. I've been doing UK Garage since 1996. The internet, been doing that since the early 2000s between New Detroit Radio, IPM Radio, burstradio.net, and 313.fm with the man right here.
My name is Brent. I've been doing the radio thing for probably 15 years now. Around 1999, there was a program on a station. I don't even know if the station is the same anymore, but it used to be 89X. They used to have a program every Saturday from 10 till 2 called X2K, and it was just all electronic music. And somehow I found that when I was 14 years old and was hooked from that point on.
My start was like real early. I'm from the disco era personally. I mean, growing up in Flint, I listened to a lot of rock and roll till I was 14. Then I transitioned over to R&B. R&B went into disco. Disco went into house. My influences back then would have been radio, Tiger Dan, the Electrifying Mojo, the Wizard, and it just kind of took off from there. I've worked in many record shops between Flint and Detroit, so kind of like kickstarted, I guess, my love for electronic music before electronic music was a household word. I was working at Buy Right Music, and we got a lot of records in from London at the time, and this was like around 93 or so. Didn't realize then it was UK Garage. I just looked at it as house music. I got my first club gig over at the venerable Club 246, and having to work at Buy Right and having to sell records to everybody and their mother, I decided, well, I can't keep playing the same shit that everybody else is playing. So I took a liking to UK Garage, and I've been with it ever since.
I had been approached by a lady a long time ago to be a part of a broadcast that she started called Sub Out Radio. When she asked what date and time I wanted to do, I had picked Wednesdays at 7 p.m. because I was just doing it from home in the basement, and I figured Wednesday would be a good day because you're not really competing with any events. When we started Burst Radio originally, it was actually Burst Audio Company. They were one of like the biggest audio companies in Detroit. They're not around anymore, but they used to do like all the Richard Houghton parties at the Packard plant and stuff. They were one of the key players in audio for the city. The person that was running it wanted to do a radio show, and that's why we were originally called Burst Radio before we were 313.fm. But after doing that for a couple years, because we had the ability to broadcast 24/7, in the past when we weren't live on air, because it was only Sundays that we broadcast, it would just play just random songs. And we thought, well, why not utilize all this time we have? So we started adding shows to the schedule.
I got into the internet radio kind of like by accident. I was kind of like a featured artist on NewDetroitRadio.com.
Because he was a host on the
NPR.
Yeah, on the original Burst Radio when I started my show. Even the first one, before we were doing it here, we were just doing it at in my basement. But I think you even came to the first Planet Funk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like me, you, Desi, and John Salem, like in my basement.
Yeah, when Burst became a thing, Brent was basically doing photography for Burst Radio. I was one of the on-air personalities. Going back to the sub out that he was talking about, he used to do something back at the Baltimore on the other side of downtown. So that's how we kind of hooked up. But we hooked up.
No, we met before that.
Well, yeah, before that, the Operation Open Decks at Northern Lights. So that's how me and him connected. We were on the ground floor for the first Techtroid that happened over in Harmony Park. You know, like once Burst transitioned into 313, I've been with him for the last, 10 plus years?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've always been a fan of internet radio. It's nice because unlike regular FM radio that is mostly has to worry about funding and commercials and charts and stuff, internet radio you don't really have that. I mean there are some stations that don't really care about charts or anything. They want to put out good music, like a lot of college broadcasts, public radio, NPR, a lot of them are talk programs and stuff. So there's still some good terrestrial radio, but I do like internet radio for that fact. But you don't have to worry about commercial. I mean, we've never had commercials on. Sucks because it costs money, but I'm just kind of against the idea, so I don't mind being poor and paying to host everything, I guess.
Yeah, and Lord knows we some poor asses around here. So let the truth be told about that. I mean, we're not like making any money. We're not getting paid out of this, but we do this for the love. The love of music. Plus, you get to hear, a lot of artists that normally you wouldn't think about hearing, on a continuous basis. A lot of people kind of, got their start from being on any of the older internet stations.
I think my first introduction to internet radio actually came before sub-out radio. It was on FM radio, but they also broadcast on the internet. There's a guy named Bam that did a broadcast on 89.3 or something like that. But yeah, that was my first introduction to internet radio, really, as far as playing it. But it was interesting because you had to still be conscious of the fact that it was terrestrial radio, so we had FCC. So on our station we have an explicit rating on iTunes, so we can do whatever you want. But there, especially with it being a college station, like you couldn't play anything explicit at all. Asher told me, he said, well, hey, I know this coffee shop in Detroit, and this was before it was SPKRBOX, it was still Urban Bean Co. And he says, the owner's really cool, he's always looking for DJs, maybe we could just do it there. And I said, okay, cool. So we showed up, and I loved it. I thought it was really cool, and so I asked Josh, the owner, I was like, is it cool if we just do it here every Wednesday? And he's like, yeah, I love that. It's nice having a more central location for everyone to come to. Also, like people coming internationally, Ellen Alien probably wouldn't have taken an Uber to my house in Oxford, but she came here to be on the show in Detroit, so it definitely works out for that reason. Playing on the show, I always tell people the best way is to email me, because Instagram and Facebook message, and it's gonna get buried. But for the people that have emailed me, if you see this, I am getting to all of them. But it's just my name, Brent, at 313.fm. You just introduce yourself, and I'll ask you to send me a demo mix.
Yeah, if we happen to see somebody out and about at a party or whatever, and we think that they'd be a good fit you know, I'll let Brent know usually. That's how, like, you know, some people that I've known, I've had them come on the show due to word of mouth recommendation. So, you know, I'm happy for that. I mean, as long as little people remember me, like, well, when you ask how they got their start, oh, well, you know, Woodward did this, Woodward introduced me to Brent, Woodward put in a good word, blah, 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 blah. You know, the chain keeps growing.
I've had like a ton of DJs tell me that this was like their first Detroit show or like first show ever. Yeah. It's kind of cool, I guess. I'll take that. Detroit definitely is a huge pool of talent. Trying to do a weekly show with 2 artists every week is a little difficult, but when you live in Detroit or, you know, do the show in Detroit, it's a lot easier because there's so many people, and even outside of Detroit, I mean, Flint, Ann Arbor, you know, there's Lansing, even people will come from Lansing. There's enough here that even last minute, I can probably get 2 DJs, so it's definitely awesome. I couldn't imagine doing this, I don't know, in the middle of Kentucky or something. Not to shit on Kentucky, but I doubt there's as many electronic music DJs.
What's good about the Detroit music community, you know, like us OGs who's been around for a while, we get to impart our wisdom to the ones that's coming up behind us. So that's a good thing. Motown is like the bedrock, okay? So, you know, you go over on the boulevard to Pittsfield, USA, and you walk through there and you see all of the, you know, artists, you know, that came before myself and Brent, you know, but they were more into like, you know, the R&B type realm than anything else. Now, you know, like I said earlier, it wasn't until the 80s until everything kind of, you know, taken off. You know, you had like the electrifying Mojo, who was like the only DJ in Detroit who would play freeform and not be corporate, you know. So you would hear him play B-52, you hear him play Prince, you hear him play Parliament Funkadelic. He'd throw some classical in there, you know. I mean, just kind of expand the mind, you know. Him, the Wizard, Jeff Mills, of course, he was famous for mixing. I mean, he was doing, you know, the, I guess, Ghetto Tech before it was Ghetto Tech. So he had a big hand in forming what Detroit radio would be. But what I see for the future, you know, as long as there's outlets like 313.fm, you know, people get their 15 minutes of fame, and it leads to bigger and better things. And as long as I can still do this, I'm with this man until the wheels fall off. Or I die, whichever one comes first. And me being, you know, 65 and doing this, people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, smoke and mirrors. The rave community set me up, you know, for like long nights. I get by on, you know, 2-3 hours worth of sleep. No matter how tired I may be, you know, we still got a thing to do. As far as public radio / internet, you know, as long as the people want it, you know, we're gonna deliver. So I think we've done pretty good for over 10 years worth of putting up with each other. We've aged quite a bit, you know, mellowed in our later years, but all in all, still about the music.